If you don't know what to do, start with what not to do. This shift in perspective called inversion thinking is one of the clearest ways to cut out all the noise from your life. And it might sound simple, but it actually taps into something much deeper, which is how we've been wired to think. This way of thinking can help you figure out what career path to go down, what relationship to get into, and even something as simple as what to have tomorrow morning for breakfast. So stick around to the end of this video and I'm going to give you a few examples of how this can be applied in your day-to-day life. You see, inversion thinking flipped the decision-making process upside down. Instead of starting with, what do I need to do? You start with, what should I absolutely avoid? And it works because it's built on how our brains have been designed to help keep us alive. You see, humans have what's called a negativity bias, a very well-documented cognitive phenomenon where negative information actually has a very strong impact on our thoughts and our behaviors, a lot more than the positive ones. And from an evolutionary standpoint, this makes sense, right? Our ancestors weren't roaming the savannah trying to find a place with the most good vibes, as the kids say. But they were paying more attention to things like predators, poisonous plants, and social rejection or social exclusion. They paid attention to these things because those were the things that had the most threat on their survival. And if they didn't, they wouldn't have still been alive. In fact, studies have shown that negative information are processed a lot more thoroughly and elicits a much stronger and faster neurological response than positive ones. One commonly cited paper by Roy Baumeister and co. called Bad is Stronger Than Good basically summarized decades of psychological and neuroscientific research, and it confirms that we actually learn more from pain, remember negative experiences more vividly, and react a lot more to loss than to equivalent gains. So when you flip a decision and ask yourself, what would definitely guarantee failure or regret? You're actually tapping into this human bias that we have and using it to your advantage. And I saw this work for myself personally when I was trying to figure out what medical specialty I wanted to go into. When I was coming out of high school, I thought I wanted to be a neurosurgeon, particularly because a lot of people were always talking about how complicated and difficult it is. And for some reason back then, I just always liked taking on like these challenges. A few years into medical school, I realized what the job actually entailed, how hectic it is, how many years of specialization you need to go through. And I quickly dropped it. But at this point, I was unsure about what it is I wanted to go into. I was a bit lost. And I must have heard this advice from somewhere, but I began working backwards, trying to figure out what it was that I actually didn't want in the specialty that I wanted to go into. And what really helped was speaking to a lot of consultants who were in different specialties to find out what they regretted when they look back on their own medical training journey. And a lot of them mentioned how they wish they had spent more time with their children, their family, and not been at the hospital all the time. I definitely didn't want a life where I wouldn't be able to have a good relationship with my kids or with my family. And that was something that they said they felt affected the relationship they have with their kids today. I also looked at the personalities of, people from certain specialties or consultants in certain specialties. Some of them were quite bitter. Some were just plain assholes. And I knew I didn't want to become like that. And there was a common theme among certain specialties. And I just need to avoid those ones completely. So after a few years of eliminating so many different specialties, focusing mainly on the things I didn't want in my life, I was left with a handful of specialties to pick from. That's made the decision of what I'm going to go into a lot clearer. And you can apply this to anything. Not sure what relationship you want to get into. Think about the relationships you've had that have been the most draining. And you don't even necessarily have to look at just your relationship. You can look at relationships of people around you and think about what it is that you don't want in yours. Not sure what career you want to pursue. Think about the types of environments that kill your motivation and absolutely just kills your soul. Avoid those ones, or at least know to avoid them. Don't try and find the perfect answer. Start by clearing away all the wrong ones. And once you've cleared that space, you're going to see what's left, what it is that aligns the most with you, and what actually makes sense. And I think this example from Alex Hormozi really hits the nail on the head. It's quite difficult for someone to list out what they think is going to make them successful, especially just starting from a blank slate. But if you were to ask them think about what it would take for them to not be successful, I think we can come up with a non-exhaustive list. Don't show up on time, keep procrastinating doing the important things, spend more than you earn, jump from one popular thing to the next one, trying to chase trends, and we can keep on going. And same thing with relationships or marriages. What would it take for you to have an unsuccessful marriage, right? Be unfaithful, lie all the time, give more attention to people of the opposite gender or your preferred gender than you do to your partner, never say exactly how you feel. You can keep on coming up with different things. And I think being able to have this negative list and then just flipping it on its head can give you a more direct course of action on what it is that you do need to do, rather than trying to just think of all of those things from scratch. And inversion thinking won't always hand you the perfect answer, but it will narrow the field, cut through all the noise, and give you a much clearer picture to help guide your decision. So if you're stuck, lost, or overwhelmed, just start by doing this. Don't try to figure out what it is you want to do. Just get very clear on what it is you absolutely should not be doing or do not want to do. And the rest will start to reveal itself.